as Kenny mentioned, for that introduction, we're going to talk about these things. We're going to talk about a caveat, why this talk, security your baby is ugly, social engineering team, and then the number one security activity and resources. If we have time, we'll get to lunch. You guys don't want to go to lunch. You guys don't want to stand in that line, right? I can get an extra 15 minutes. All right, the caveat, right? Social engineer developers to a leadership support. Worked in businesses where I had leadership, and I did it. And it's very much difficult. You get to a certain point, so you kind of have to realize that these techniques will get you in with the dev team, will get them thinking more about security, but you have to have leadership support, and that's what I've always had is buy-in from the management. Luckily, a lot of dev managers, at least the good ones, want quality code, right? And in my view, secure code is quality code. It's already in the documentation on how to do stuff properly. They're not doing anything really all that special other than writing good code, and development managers and leadership want that. So especially if you show that, that will help. So that also might require your leadership to actually social engineer, depending on what level you're at, right? Getting in with the development team and the development leadership. My clicker is not working. So why this talk? I think this is a problem. I talk to a lot of people within the industry is how do I get developers thinking about security, in a much better way. I have successfully been able to do that. Started Premise Health in 2016 as the software security engineer. And what was cool about the role was that I sat with the development team. The security and the development team were in two different buildings. I sat with the developers, and so I really got ingrained with them. And I've always kind of gotten along with people pretty well just naturally, but then I read Chris Hadnagy's social engineering books, and I was like, holy crap, a lot of this stuff is applicable not just to breaking into buildings, but just interacting with your fellow person, right? So that's why this talk. But before we get to the social engineering aspects, I do have a bit of a rant on the security industry as a whole and kind of some of the things that I see as kind of off-putting when you're working with development teams. The first thing is we're not special. We are glorified hall monitors. That's all. You can't run in the halls. You can't do that, right? And so we kind of have to be a little bit humble when we approach development, and really anybody that's outside of security. We can kind of get pumped up. Oh, I own this. I hacked this. But we're really just telling them they did something wrong, and that's what a hall monitor is. So we're not really. Also, if you're the office fan, the assistant to the regional manager instead of the assistant regional manager. So one of my first things I get on is the security champions. The concept is good. I think the execution of it is great. I don't know if you've ever talked to a developer about champion and asked them what they did. I have. They say it's very corporate-y. So if you're going to start throwing that term around, that can kind of be off-putting. You're pretty much putting that hall monitor sash onto someone that actually wants to do a good job from a security perspective. And again, this might work. If it works at your place and it's great, absolutely go for it. But it could be something different, right? It could be like Jedi, Guru, something that a lot of developers are going to kind of speak to. In my view, they're just a good developer. Again, quality code is secure code. So if they're writing quality code, they're a good developer, and they're already doing the security things as they're writing the code. And again, we throw this around a whole lot, and I actually had a salesperson come up to me and say, I didn't even realize I was doing that, and it might be off-putting to the developers. So before throwing certain terms around, and the next one is of particular concern, Sec DevOps, DevSecOps, DevOps Sec. I mean, if we can't even get the name right, why are we even using this term, right? And I love, to me, it's just DevOps, right? It's nothing special. Again, we are nothing special, all right? We don't need to come in and insert our stuff into their names. And by the way, I've talked to developers who think DevOps is a stupid term just in general, right? They actually wanted to be called not the DevOps team, but the platform engineering team. So they even hate some of these buzzwords as well. So it's kind of be mindful of how you're coming off to people, right? And I love that Elo Punk had this at GERCON recently. It's pronounced DevOps. The SEC is silent. And don't development lifecycle. As you can tell, I love memes. I could not find any memes on the secure software development lifecycle. Again, to me, it's the development life cycle. Security should just be integrated part of that. Checks, you know, I've had conversations with managers. This goes back to having support. They want stuff. They want peer reviews, right? It's not a security thing, but what are they doing? The seniors are checking junior dev code to make sure they're actually doing things properly. So that's, to me, a security check. Unit tests, they want to reduce the cost of development as well, right? Because we talked about shifting left as much as possible. And to do that, they've got to have these certain things in there, and that includes security, right? And security tickets are just bugs to me. We should not be having them work on a low security finding that, you know, when they've got high business needs that get taken care of. They should address it at some point, but that's where you sit down with them and agree upon like an SLA. So fine, I didn't walk out, that's good. I mean, you're a little bit open-minded to this. I may have pooped on some people's favorite terms. You know, I'm sorry, but you know, to me, it's just, you know, we're nothing special. We should be coming to developers or anybody we work with, not just developers, coming there a little bit humble, trying to see help and provide them their support. So social engineering the dev team. This needs to be an authentic, a genuine thing. Something in a lot of other sales books, right? Coming off as authentic instead of manipulative. If you manipulate them, they find out about it, you've just lost it, right? So you have to come at this from an authentic and genuine standpoint. I'm going to give you some tips that worked for me, but so apply as you need. You're trying to copy, go about stuff. You should be looking at these techniques and seeing them as you as a person. So again, being genuine and authentic. And sometimes you're going to fail. To developers, you know, people I just get along with, right? It's going to happen. Again, that's where the leadership support comes in. I actually got along with a guy really great. We found out we were born 100 miles apart from each other. And we were living in Nashville, Tennessee, which is crazy. But the reason why he does it is because his leadership is making him do it. So people that you're just never going to get to, but you can still have a good relationship. And that's probably the big thing, right, is having an actual relationship with people. There's nothing surprising. Getting along with people, being nice, rapport building, right? So read the social engineering book, and you can see a lot of that kind of same stuff can be applicable as long as it's from an authentic and genuine standpoint. Just talk a virtual conference, and someone nailed it. They're like, just have empathy, right? So empathy, get to know them. How do you do this? You kind of start getting in with their, look for their meetings to have this chicken and egg want to open a bacon and egg restaurant, right? And so the devs see themselves as pig. They have skin in the, you know, pooping out eggs. You know, they're going to see. So you try to be the pig, right? And I never got to that point, but they understand I was there with them because I was going to, and I wasn't even saying anything, right? And that's kind of the next thing. Listen, right? I didn't say anything. I went to their groomings. I went to their stand-ups. And a lot of times, like when they know the security, I mean, you're still going to have this stigma. Oh, the security person's here. So you kind of try to be that, you know, that animal that just kind of hides in the brush and just observes and kind of gets them more associated and like used to you being there, and also just not calling out every little thing, right? Sometimes when smaller things, you might have to eat that blue pill, right? You have to be cipher and ignorance is bliss. Especially you ask, does it really matter? Now, if there's an actual, yeah, no, we can't do that. But a lot of times, I spent my first 3 months out of that came the questions. So I didn't have to necessarily go find stuff. They started bringing stuff to me in their stuff. Ask questions, too. Developers love talking about their code. You know the term, calling somebody's baby ugly, right? I just did that for security. Tell developers that their baby's ugly. But if you in their code and what they're building, all this stuff, you know, they will, you know, asking questions is one of those ways that you can interact. Really build a question with someone. Courses are going to have this too, but there's no special sales, social engineering. Ask questions. You want to be a great conversationalist? You don't talk. You ask the question, right? That's what you do, and actively listen too, right? Actively listen to the developers and what they're, I try to understand their goals, there's challenges, and I tell them this too. I want to understand this, so I ask a lot of questions. Their frustrations, things like that, and see where you can kind of be an enabler for the development team. Reciprocity, right? So stuff for them is get you. I would walk up to a desk and go, okay, what do you need from me? Oftentimes, I just wanted to see if we're going to go grab lunch or something. But oftentimes, I could walk up to a dev team and they would fix it fairly quickly, even low stuff. Sometimes we need to put this through the proper process. This is a low. It needs to be done. But I got to that point where I got to kind of drop what they're doing and help me out, right? And it's about giving, not receiving. So one of the things that I would do is service desk tickets. I had access to the service desk tickets. I would push tickets along or reroute them to the right group if they were in the wrong group. Little things like that say a lot to people so that then when I have a security issue, they're going to drop what they're doing to help me. The other thing I like to do is bring bacon, right? Who doesn't love bacon? So this is 144 pieces of bacon. Bought it at Sam's. It's 272 packs for about 20 bucks. I was doing security training, and I brought this and dropped it on the table. And I will tell you, the look on their faces when they came in was great. Is that bacon? No one ever brought them bacon, right? It's a little bit harder now with the remote stuff, but if you can try to find those opportunities to swag. Those little privacy sliders on the monitors, go grab a handful. They love those stuff. I was handing out those like crazy. I would just grab a handful from a conference, bring them back. Hey Tim, you got one of those privacy cameras? Yeah, here you go. Right? It's simple things like that I'm going out of my way to do stuff. I also in the training, one of my first slides was talking about security wins. Right? So what did they do right? And it was amazing because. And I would hand out swag. So I got the company to give me a ton of swag. And these were all little things, pens, notebooks, coffee mugs, nothing super fancy or special. And I would call them out. And you know what happened the 2 weeks afterwards? They would bring me security stuff for like 2 weeks after the training of stuff that needed to be addressed. Right? The stuff they're reaching out to me. And again, this is where this story applies to me. You kind of have to think creatively. Resources to get the developers stuff essentially, or get them on your side. Body language, right? You can do a lot of reading with body language. And if you ever notice, if you're at a conference and you feel like you're really engaged with someone, watch their body language and see if it's mirrored you. And then what you do is you shift your body language and see if they shift, right? It's when you see it happen. And I've even called someone and was talking to someone about this technique, and then I shifted like almost immediately after, and they shifted too, and they were like, oh, whoa, that's really freaky. It's really freaky when you see it happen. But body language is important. I will say how you dress. If you're coming into a dev group that's got hoodies and T-shirts and other stuff, and you're wearing like a suit or a collared shirt, like a button-up collar shirt, or tucked in and everything, you're going to stick out to them, right? So you kind of want to blend in a little bit. Again, don't go to the actually dressing like a dev. Fit what fits your personality best. I would still wear a collared shirt, but I'd wear like the one untucked jeans. I got some Adidas shoes on here, and then I'd roll up the sleeves, right? So that was what I'm comfortable with. That's what I consider business casual. I'm former military, so I do have some of that. Looking professional when you go into work. But there are opportunities for that. I actually do like wearing hats. I was wearing them early part in the all remote, and I stopped. But like when I go like a dev, like if I'm in a dev meeting or something, I might throw it back on because there are other people wearing hats, right? So you kind of want to connect with people with kind of how you dress. And again, remote work has kind of changed a lot of this stuff, so it's a lot harder to see body language on a camera, right? And we'll talk about some of the remote work, stuff that you can do. Be vulnerable, right? Be transparent. Don't hide anything from them, right? Give them, I was transparent. I'm always transparent with them. I'm like, we should not have bottlenecks or roadblocks for deploying code, right? That doesn't mean we're not going to put in some speed bumps here and there, right? So I was very upfront, transparent. I told them my whole plan, right? It was 3 months sit with them. You know, the next it's 6 months. We should probably start looking at some tooling, some testing, putting that in place. You know, I gave them the whole plan. And if you have a, you know, you should have a plan before you start working with the dev team. You should be able to share that with them and where you want to go. Now, part of the 3 months is me trying to understand where security best fits in, because I do not want to go in and start disrupting how they're developing code, because that's going to piss them off. That means they're not going to want to work with you, right? I also admitting, right? If I'm wrong about it, I admit I'm wrong. I've actually become a better security person because they would question some stuff. And we'd have, sometimes I would win the case. Other times I would be like, okay, yeah, maybe you don't need to worry about that. And again, be authentic with all this stuff. Not manipulative. If you're manipulative, you're going to lose them pretty quickly. But in general, just kind of be truthful and honest, and that's going to resonate with them. Being honest with someone about something that maybe you shouldn't tell them. I mean, there are certain lines within security and stuff, but sometimes being truthful with them, they know they're sharing something maybe you shouldn't be sharing with them, or they haven't had it in the past. A lot of people have had a bad experience with security people, so if you're more open to them, they're going to be like, holy, like I can actually trust this person. The working from home challenge, right? This makes building relationships a lot harder. If you've heard of the Allen curve, there's the whole, like, and this was a study done in the 70s, the more distance, the less communication you have. And it can really hurt, like, it's really tough to keep those relationships going. I was fortunate, some of my current devs, I was in the office with them, so they know me, I had that established relationship. But I've been trying to work on building with, you know, remote people. I've got people out in San Diego, got people in San Antonio. It's really hard. I try to go there, like I would travel there to try and, you know, connect with them and catch up and, you know, have a couple meetings, go out and have some adult beverages. But you really have to look for a lot of opportunities to connect. If I'm in a meeting, just like a general meeting with a developer, I might like reach out on like an IM and just send them a message. Hey man, how's it going, right? And this is where you can look for opportunities to connect on your other interest. I'm a big baseball fan, so I have a Cleveland Indians fan at work. Me and him go back and forth about like baseball stuff. It could be woodworking, it could be, you know, whatever your interests are, trying to identify some of that stuff. And you pick up that stuff just even sitting in the meetings, right? And trying to understand who these people are and what some of their interests are. I do set up local events like happy hour for us to connect. I think even now, like a lot of my company's going remote. We're going to do some sort of hybrid workforce thing. So for me, those local events become even more relevant, especially if you're in the same city with them, right? You can try to take and buy them a beer. That's some reciprocity right there. You know, and always going to these meetings online, the stand-ups, other stuff, very, very important. I have a 30-minute catch-up meeting with our director of development that's been there since 2016. That's one of the first meetings. If you can't get in with the director of development or manager, the scrum masters are really great because they know everything that's going on. Hey, what are you trying to do? And they have their own frustration with development. That they're trying to put certain processes in place, so you look for opportunities on where you can help them, and they kind of know everything. Pay attention to your box. I don't know if anybody's seen that demo where they have the guy does the different around the person with the multiple cups that's constantly drinking. That's actually me, by the guy in the bottom left corner. There's a guy. How you're presenting that little box is very important. Media arts grad. If you've ever seen a movie where someone's like face is half shaded, that's intentional to make sure, or the person's really dark. So make sure you have like good lighting. I'm not always perfect about it either. I often just sit outside and use those things that you can light up if you can get one of those. But see you and not working. Like it's really drives me off for working nowadays, but like not working and actually paying attention to what they're saying. So with that in mind, I think I'm doing pretty good time. One of my favorite movies is Office Space, and there's a really good scene, I think you guys all know this, where Peter's meeting the Bobs, and it's a great example of how some of these techniques can work, because we're talking about a very quick, introduction, and getting to know people. So there's a lot of the same techniques I've talked about in here that apply to this scene. For people that haven't seen Office Space, there's the Bobs who are coming in to pretty much reorg. They're essentially coming in to fire people. And so Peter's one of the people being interviewed. At this point, he's at a don't really care anymore. And he starts by coming in going, "Hi, Bob." There's another technique I haven't talked about is using people's names. Use people's names as communication. People like seeing their name. They love hearing their name. If you have an opportunity, use people's names. You can see here they're both kind of Bob walked through a typical day. These are all intentional too. This is a scene that's meant to make you feel good and laugh a little bit. It's intentional. You can see Bob leaning forward too. Leaning forward is an indication that you're interested in somebody and that you're actively listening. And you see Peter sitting now straight up. And by the way, this is not developers or security on either side. It's just a really great example of the interaction, how that they build a relationship fairly quickly. And also showing your hands is a good thing. I know it's hard with Zoom, but people who have their hands, if I stood here like this, you'd have this eerie feeling of not trusting me. So having your hand show is really good. And he goes into, about being 15 minutes late and using the door. So he's actually being very open and transparent about, what he does at work. And instead of Bob's getting on him, they go, "Space out? What do you mean space out?" And he says after lunch too, he kind of, he spaces out. And in a given week, he probably does 15 minutes of real actual work. So again, being open and transparent. And the Bobs are going, "Tell us more," right? Tell us more about this. So they're trying to understand the goals and challenges. And then you can see, prior to this, he relaxes. Let me tell you about TPS reports, right? And so they cut away and they cut back to this scene where they're talking. You can see the Bobs are still engaged. They're leaning forward. Peter's, relaxed. And he's being very open about this, right? He's like, he said, "You mean you don't care?" So again, and he says if the company ships more units, he doesn't get a dime. So again, he's being very open and candid about his position. So Peter relaxes again, and you can see this is where the body language matches. The other Bob leans back, matching Peter leaning back, right? So they're really engaged in this conversation. And then here is, he leans forward again. He goes, "What if," right? Gives you some sort of stock option. Would you be open to this? And Peter goes, "I don't know, I guess," right? He's still being candid, right? He's still being open. He's being a person. And then he says, "Real nice talking to both you guys." So, and then they do the handshake, which is another form of interaction that I know have gone away with COVID. Hopefully it's coming back. Carry hand sanitizer, by the way. Going to a conference prepared me for the pandemic, right? Hand sanitizer in the pocket. Anytime I shake someone's hand, rub a little on there. Don't touch my face. All this usual stuff. But then the Bobs go, "No, pleasure's all side on this table. Thank you." So appreciation. That's another one that I'm kind of blowing through here, is saying thank you a lot. So every communication, say thank you. And this doesn't have to be just developers, but say thank you. There's so many times it feels good for people to feel like they've done something for you, right? And then Peter says, "Good luck with your firings. I hope they go really well." And this is another form of matching thumbs up, and you can see their Bob. He's even at eye level. You see, I'm interacting. Yeah, thumbs up, right? And then of course the scene ends with everything not to do, which is Lumberg. And he walks up to you. So Peter, what's happening? Listen. So he asks a question, but he doesn't really care, right? Listen. He's looking down. He's not making eye contact. And what does Peter do? Just walks right by him, right? So that's a great demo of kind of some of these techniques I've talked about and how you can interact. The number one activity I did that really helped with kind of shifting left and getting developers to write better code is threat modeling. This is Adam Shostak's book. I read the first chapter, and actually at the end of his first chapter, he says, just go start threat modeling. Because you can get into some lot more concepts, but it's ultimately diagramming a workflow and talking through attack patterns with them. And I think that's not Dread, it's Stride is what I use. And I keep it simple, right? And so This is one, and this was probably one of the last things I implemented because I started with testing anything new going out. We're going to test, we're going to put some automation in, and then once we started talking about design, I said, anytime you have a design idea, we need to go through a threat. Well, I also re-changed it from threat model to data flow discussion, right? So I'm thinking about, and it's a small thing, right? It's not maybe threat modeling may have been a good thing, but a data flow discussion to me sounds a lot more like it's beneficial to them. And we did find out when we were doing threat modeling that they weren't always on the same page, even in that design session where they feel like they had a solution, right? Oh, I thought we were going to build it here. No, we're going to build it here. Like that's a big thing, right? That's a difference. So that shows value to managers too, is that we're getting everybody on the same page, right? And that's not even a security thing. So even there, it was just a good meeting to have. But then we walked through attack techniques, and this is where their mindset switched, right? So you have to kind of be quiet and let them try to speak up and come up with their own stuff, which is really hard for us security people. Again, that's where a silent room, someone's going to speak up. If I don't think if I stop talking here, but if you're in a room and you just stop talking, like someone's going to at some point say something, right? People don't like awkward silences. And if they have problem, you can throw them a fairly simple example. What I did was, what if I give you $1 million for access and have you write this code or install this thing on your machine or install it into something within? They're like, wait, you can't. Oh, so at that point, it really flipped their mindset to understand that they needed to think outside the box. And from there, they started with really creative attack solutions because they know the code, right? They also know the solutions to that as well, right? And certain, and you can go as far as like Mission Impossible style stuff, because we're probably starting to see some of that stuff with SolarWinds, and there are a couple cases recently where someone bribed like an employee to install something on their machine. So those are absolutely things, but it really switched their mindset. And so now, as they're writing the code, they're going, oh, wait, you've kind of flipped that attacker mindset on them, so that when they're writing the code, they're actually thinking about this kind of stuff. Resources. Phoenix Project. If you haven't read it and you're working with a development team, go read it. They've probably read it. It's a very good book. Security is not in a good light in that book. I think it kind of comes out in the end, but it's a great book to kind of understand like process and how they want to do development and code and things like this, DevOps type stuff. And then again, I've already talked about Chris Hadnagy's social engineering books. How to Win Friends and Influence People. These are sales books, right? These are things that salespeople do, but this is really great for building relationships. One of the things I like to say is there's 3 types of power in an organization, right? There is role power, there is technical power, right? So what you know, and then there's relationship. Anybody that's been successful knows that they got there because of the relationships they have built within an organization and even within the community. I think Stefan on the previous talk talked about networking, right? That's powerful for a job search. So, and it's true in just about every aspect of life. 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, and then more recently, Ego is the Enemy. Ryan Holiday has got some really good books on like stoicism and things like that. Obstacle is the Way, so you can find creative solutions to stuff is another great book. With that, I've got 2 minutes for questions, if there are any, and I think I have something to give away for the first person that asks the question. Sir. Mm-hmm.
What do you think is the best way to kind of start that initial email conversation?
So the question was, if for a team that's out there, like, are you talking about like you've never worked with them before? The email, that's where you have to have, again, that's where you have to have some of the leadership buy-in on stuff. It's very hard. We all suck at it. I use bottom line up front I'm going to start talking about email techniques because I haven't been in that situation. And again, my dev group too was like 50 people, so I have a different experience. So you have to kind of figure out where some of this stuff can fit in with your stuff. Keep it short. Bottom line. A lot of people write their email and they point on the bottom. Move that to the top, and then a sentence or 2. That's people will ask for more context of stuff, and that's what I found a great way to interact and get people to actually respond. If you write 2 paragraphs of stuff, I even look at it and I go, no, I'm not going to save this for later, right? So kind of being crisp and clean if you're talking about sending an email to somebody. But it's like it's getting leadership buy-in. You probably reach out to like the director of development or someone. That's where you got to start, or a scrum master or something, to kind of hey, and it's really hard for me. I've been pushed out of work groups because leadership at the top had made a business call and stuff, and I just have to accept that sometimes, right? So that might be where your leadership or you kind of start trying to build that relationship and ask questions. Again, I start with a question too. Bottom line up front, I